increase student engagement and equity with iClicker in chemistry. Just share the members of the internal Macmillan Learning team. I'm Maureen Ratchford. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager at Macmillan Learning. I will be your host and facilitator for today, joined by Jeff Howard, who is our Program Director for Chemistry, and Natalie, who is just assisting everybody. Natalie Dugal is our Customer Marketing Specialist, and she leads our peer consultant group and class test pilot program, as well as training on iClicker. And just another note about Natalie, because she will be jumping in occasionally. Before joining Macmillan as a peer consultant herself, she was a training specialist. And before that, she'd spent over a decade teaching composition and literature, using active learning techniques to engage students. So she speaks from a point of experience in the classroom as well. Just a couple of other housekeeping pieces in addition to Natalie throwing the link that we want you to use to join iClicker. This is intentionally an active learning webinar, and you are all going to be active participants. So please use the link that is in the chat to be able to use iClicker. You can use it on your phone or your computer, and you can go ahead and log in and experience this firsthand as we go through the webinar. It is interactive. If you want to talk to us through Zoom, we welcome that as well. Just make sure to use the Zoom chat, and we will be monitoring and answering through chat. There may be times where it's appropriate where we bring the questions to our speaker, Brandon Tan, who I'm going to introduce in a second. So just kind of to help orient, the tool we're talking about, iClicker, is available standalone as an app. We also offer iClicker for free through our Achieve Premium courses. Achieve Premium courses would be Achieve courses that have authored content or really robust multimedia programs. And just recently, at the end of November, we actually made iClicker a free component of the lower cost Achieve Essentials. So very excited to be able to add that without adding value to the Achieve Essentials platform. So now I want to introduce our speaker, Brandon Tan from Merced College. He is a professor of chemistry and mathematics. And beyond that, he is a passionate advocate and practitioner of active learning. In fact, Brandon is going to be working with us on an active learning guide. It's in the works right now, but he is helping us with some best practices and tips, some of those that you may see in the future from something like this. He also founded and continues to coordinate an active learning conference that is hosted at Merced College. That is just a tip of the iceberg on things he has done with active learning in the past, and again, continues to be very involved in that at the local level at his school, but also continues to work with us as a peer consultant. So if anybody needs some assistance and wants to learn a little bit more about iClicker, you can contact Brandon directly, and Natalie as well. So we'll go ahead and I'll hand it over to you, Brandon.
All right, thank you, Maureen. Thank you for the introduction, and welcome everyone. I am Brandon Tan. I do teach chemistry and math. My discipline is primarily is chemistry, and I also have been teaching math for many years as well at the community college level. This talk is all about student engagement and equity in our classes. So hopefully the main takeaways that you get out of this will be the focus on maintaining equity and creating that equitable environment, and how we can use iClicker to develop that. So we're gonna, there's a couple questions I wanted to kind of throw out there. Through iClicker, I see that right now we have, I'm not sure if anybody's in the class yet. I'm seeing 0 attendees right now. We'll see if you can get the polls, just to learn a little bit about you, so that I can tailor some of the examples and explain the benefits of some of these for different size classes and things of that nature. We'll talk about why I even was looking for a tool like iClicker early on when I started utilizing more active learning in my classroom, and then we'll spend a little bit of time on how iClicker works. I know Maureen introduced it a little bit. There's different ways that we can use iClicker, and I'll be focusing on the app side of it. I've never actually used a physical clicker since I started using iClicker, but we'll talk about that just briefly when we get there. And then lastly, we'll spend the last half of this talk about how iClicker can be used to create an equitable learning environment or class and to engage students. So before I jump into all of the iClicker talk, a little bit about Merced College. It's a 2-year public college in the center of California. We serve the Central Valley, typically from Fresno up to Modelo. If you take a look at our demographics, we are predominantly made up of students coming from minority groups. We are almost 2/3 Hispanic and Asian and Filipino, African American. And so we do have a diverse student body. And that's why um, creating an equitable learning environment is very, very important for me. Here's one of the things about iClicker. I'm going to talk about this. It's quick to edit, quick to set up. It's really easy class. It's easy to get through it. Um, and let me send the poll out. What are the first words that come to mind when someone mentions clickers? And this will be a short answer question, so type a couple words in, and then I'm going to show you um, the results as they come rolling in. So you can see what it looks like in real time. You should be able to see that iClicker screen. I'll put it right in the middle of the screen here. Phones, ease of use. Yeah, I think of phones too. Quiz questions. Yes. Let me scroll down. Quick in-class response, active learning. Definitely. Some kind of device. Yes, interactive usually works without a glitch. That's true, but glitches are okay. It shows that we're all human. Things happen and we can get through them. And so, yes, I think these are the same things that I think about when I think of iClicker. I think questions, I think active, I think some kind of device, whether it be the phone, whether it be a physical clicker. I'm going to close this poll. The rest of the polls, I'm going to give maybe about 20 to 30 seconds because they're going to be a little bit shorter. This is just to learn a little bit more about you. So what kind of college or institution do you work at? And this is a multiple choice. So you can see who we are.
And I'm just going to talk for 1 second and say, if you're new to iClicker and you're wondering how Brandon's question that's on your screen got over into your device, the way that iClicker works is when you get to an iClicker question and Brandon clicks that green play button, it takes a photograph or a screen capture of your computer and sends it to student devices. So you can use this with Google Slides like Brandon is, or you could use it with a YouTube video, a PDF, anything you want to show your students.
That's right. Thank you. So looks like we're about almost half-half, 2-year public colleges and some folks from 4-year colleges. I'm not sure what E is, but we'll take that as you are here and you are a teacher. Now, how do you teach in your class? Now you can see the range, so lecture-based versus activity-based versus a mix in the middle, which is C. So how are your classes typically run? Just think of your the most common class that you teach on a regular basis. And there is no right or wrong, and iClicker works with all types. So there's no judgment involved here at all. Because I know that you may hear otherwise from other people. So we have a mix. So a lot of us are a mix. Some folks mostly lecture, and then we have someone who teaches activity based. So there is that spread with a majority of us who teach kind of a mix of 50-50. Okay. And how do you teach? Like, what's the modality that you primarily teach in? Well, I do teach a mix too. I teach hybrid classes. I teach in person and online. So we do have half of us teaching in person and in high flex and hybrid. So there is the commonality that we all have some kind of interaction with our students, and iClicker hopefully will be that tool that will help just really invigorate the class in ways that you wouldn't imagine. And how large are your typical classes? This is going to help me to know when we talk about some examples of how we use iClicker to kind of tweak those examples, if need be. Oh, nice spread. Yeah, so some of us have very large classes, others of us have small classes and kind of the mid-size. Um, wanna I know 25 to 100. I think 25 to 100, I would say is a smaller size, and then 100 to 200 starts at a mid-size, and anything over that is very large. So we do have a spread, and you'll see some activities that work for all of these class sizes. So thank you. I threw this comic up here because this is something that I know as a student when I was in college. This is what student engagement looked like. Teachers would talk, they'd put some stuff on the board, and they'd send us home and say, "Okay, now you do it." And after becoming an instructor, learning, I'm realizing that, yeah, that's not that interactive and engaging students. We're sending them off to do the hardest stuff, to work on and to test their understanding. And we actually have time with them, and we can use the classroom to really help with that. And iClicker really um, helps nicely with helping students to gain understanding and to learn where they're misunderstanding so that we know how to tailor our courses to maximize success. So why did I even get into this kind of search? In a typical class, this is my class here, I would ask questions, I would try to get students involved with things, and a few students would answer. I'm sure, if you may have that experience. Um, and I was wondering, is there a way that when I ask a question, I could get responses from everyone? And so I started looking for tools that help me to do that. And the big question for me was, did it even exist? And is that even a possibility? And we're talking, this was around 2015 when I started incorporating a lot of active learning into my classroom. And I went from a purely lecture-based to a flipped class model. And so I started searching. And what I found was most of my students had a smart device, even back in 2015. And a recent Pew Research poll shows that 96% of adults 18 to 29 own a smartphone. And so, what if we were able to leverage this device for learning instead of just for students um, surfing the internet, going on Twitter, chatting with each other during the class time? And that was my search. What ended up happening was there was a lot of products on the market today that filled this void on audience engagement, student engagement. Obviously, oops, we're talking about one, and I think here's another glitch here. I may have to click out of here. There we go. iClicker is the one that we want to focus on for ease of use, for flexibility. And what I mean by that is some of these platforms, there's a lot of programming involved. You want to ask a question, you have to program it in, and you have to do a lot in the platform. iClicker gives you the freedom on how to get your question to the students, and there's multiple ways of doing that. How does this platform even work? So iClicker works, it's very simple. When you set up a brand new class, if you haven't done so before, it takes about 5 minutes. You just put in your class times, your name, you name the course, decide how you want to use iClicker, for attendance, not for attendance, if you want to, allow participation from anywhere or from a specific geographical area. That takes 5 minutes to do, and it works with any teaching style, and I saw that, you know, we either in person or hybrid, so it'll work very easily with us because we're a group that does meet with our students synchronously at least some point in time. If you don't, you can always talk to Natalie or myself. We have ideas of how to work with this asynchronously too. iClicker has tools for that. The beauty of iClicker is that the control panel, this little blue bar, lives above everything on your computer screen. So it's always active. And that's how you control the polls. You start and stop your class, you see your attendees and all that stuff. And so basically, like Natalie was saying, anything that you can show on your screen can be sent to students. So PowerPoint presentations, Google Slides, Google Docs, Word documents, spreadsheets, PDFs, a video that you could be watching as a class and stop it at a certain point, verbally ask the questions, send that slide to students as the image to students, and they can respond back. You can send websites. You can send document camera images, anything you can put on your screen. When you hit play, it gets sent to the students' devices. They will answer it, and then you immediately get results. And you can watch these results in real time, as you saw. If you have a double monitor on you know, like in your lecture classroom, and you drag that results screen to the secondary monitor, so you can always be watching it without worrying about, you know, opening and closing windows and stop sharing so that students don't see it while you decide how to proceed with the class discussion. So before we go on, do you have any questions on just how iClicker works, what it is? If not, if you can just type none, then I know we're all good to go. If you do have a question, go ahead and submit it in iClicker, and then you can get those answered. Cool, thanks. And I'll wait till, you know, we're about 45 seconds in, until most of us have had a chance to answer. In class, I normally like to get. Oh, go ahead, Natalie.
Oh, I threw this in the chat, but we have an iClicker instructor app, and you can use that also to preview student responses. So you don't need to have a second screen dedicated to responses if you don't have that luxury. You can actually use your phone app, and you can actually advance your slides forward and backwards. You can grade questions from like the back of the classroom all through the app.
Thank you for reminding me. That app is really cool. I do use it when my phone has enough memory. It's on its dying last legs right now, so I had to kind of strip out all the. Yeah, I did like the app when my phone was working well. It was really useful for that. So how do we use iClicker for equity in our classroom? Because this is really what changed really the nature of my in-class time with students. And, you know, I can say wholeheartedly, ever since using iClicker, my classroom environment has changed. Students are engaged, and it has provided a means for all students to be part of the class discussions in ways that it wasn't before. And, you know, when we're in class, there are some considerations that we need to take into account when interacting with students. You know, where they're coming from, what are their cultural backgrounds, in order to know how best to serve them. How do we treat students? Is it we give all students the same, or are we really trying to meet them where they all are at individually? And is that even possible? And then, you know, the importance of active learning in the classroom cannot be stated. And that there's a range of that. It's just to ensure that students are checked in, because, you know, we know that the attention spans range from 5 to 10 minutes, but after that, we're not sure what um, how locked in students are. I know personally, I think mine's about 10 minutes. So in order to just keep that clock resetting, providing activity to help students to stop, to think, to ponder, to get involved with the content and wrestle with it a little bit while they're in class, either alone or with students, that does help their learning a lot. And so some cultural considerations that we to take into account are students come from different types of cultures. Some stress independence, others kind of a interdependency, a dependence on others. Um, some cultures encourage participation in large group environments. Others encourage more of a passive participation and maybe asking questions after the class is done or in other ways. Some cultures encourage quick responses versus others, encourage taking time for a response and reflecting on it before um, submitting a response or sharing your thoughts on something. And there's definitely a balance between cultures that encourage cooperation versus competition. And students come with all kinds of backgrounds. And the transcend all of these and give all students a way to see that today. This image I thought I grabbed and I wanted to share from smartreading.org is because this is for us in the classroom. Um, for me, it helped me to visualize the difference between equity and equality. Um, Equality is just giving students the same thing. So we give students the same textbook, the same assignments, the same due dates, the same everything. Does that help them to succeed? They got the same access to office hours versus find out what students really need. And if there's a platform that helps us to do that and we can meet their specific needs every day in class, then each student will be better um, tasked with being successful for that assignment, for that class, for whatever that might be. And iClicker helps us to know students on an individual level. And you're going to see kind of an example of that, that student-teacher interaction that gets opened up because of the individual nature of iClicker. And of course, there's papers after paper after paper on, I'm just going to flip through these. I'm not going to talk about the paper specifically on the active learning in the classroom and how it does either reduce the achievement gap or increase success. And I picked three of the papers in STEM that show that, but there's a lot more. So how do we do this now? This is probably why you're here, and iClicker emphasizes and is kind of the conduit that allows different types of interactions to happen in the classroom, from student to the teacher, from the teacher to the student, the entire class as a whole. And then we can use it, of course, like some of you said, for quizzing, for assessment in different ways. So we're going to talk about each of these categories and some examples of how iClicker can be leveraged to encourage these types of interactions and to provide a means for assessment in our classroom. This is probably the hardest one, right? We ask a question to the class, 4 students answer verbally, and and the rest of the class doesn't say much for a lot of reasons, and yet we are to use that information to make judgments. Kind of, where does the class stand on understanding this? And it's impossible. So what we can do is we can use iClicker just like we did earlier on when I said, do you guys have any questions? Send the questions over. If you don't, just say none. Say I'm good. That's a one-way communication from students to the instructor. It's anonymous, and it's a way that all students can express concerns or ask questions, and you can actually go through. And I do this at the very first slide of every class period, and I just send them a slide that looks kind of like this. It just says questions, and as they're walking into class, They pull up iClicker, they fire it up, they start sending me questions. I tell them, I want to hear from everybody. So if you don't have any questions, just say none. Say I'm good, something along those lines, or tell me a joke or something. And we do get good jokes every once in a while. This was from a Gen Chem 2 class that I was teaching, and a lot of people said, nah, I'm good, no questions. But then there were some specific questions that came up. Oh, can you explain these certain questions from the lab? Can you explain what a pseudo first order reaction is? Can you go over how to do these rate calculations? Can you explain the format of the Arrhenius equation? So what I do is I go through all of their questions. I actually answer them. It takes anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes normally in a normal class period, so that everyone gets their questions answered. Sometimes it's, when's the test? What's on the quiz? When's the lab due? When do we have to, when's our paper due? Things like that. Um, Other times it's very content based, like this particular day, but it does provide a way for all students to ask without raising their hand, knowing that not everyone comes from a culture that encourages that kind of means of participation within the classroom. And just on the back end, yes, if you need to see who submitted, you can see who submitted which response when you go into the iClicker app. So if something comes up that's concerning, you can look into it. Submitted what? From the back end, from teacher to students, a lot of times there's things that we need to relate to students somehow, right? One is how to solve problems. Like we do a lot of problems in class. How to, we work them out. I use a stylus, I write on the screen. It's on the PowerPoint, and then I want to send it back to students. You can do that with iClicker. So students don't have to madly write down everything you're doing on the board. They know where to go and find it. And they can focus on the ideas and see if they understand at least the process. And then go later, back into iClicker and look at the details of how the solution went. An important thing about equity is that we cannot assume that everyone's been on our campus. I teach a lot of intro chem courses, and so a lot of the students in my classes, this is their first time on campus in that semester. And I know students, they may not want to ask the questions. Where is the tutorial center? Where is this particular office? Where is your office? And iClicker is a way to kind of just level the playing field on the first day, get everybody on board with iClicker, get them in, and get information to them that's really important. So like what I do a lot of times is like, where's our classroom? And I would do this as a, hang on, there we go. As a target question. So yes, this is Merced College. We're in the science building. Go ahead and tap somewhere on the screen just for fun. And I asked them, okay, where's our classroom? So they can give some responses. You can see where everybody's tapping here. A little dot will show up. A purple dot.
You have to
will
hit
show up
send
there.
to lock it in. There we go. So touch it and then hit send and it will pop up on Brandon.
This will help me to know if everyone has their bearings on campus. And I'll stop this right now. I'm not going to keep it going. And then you can click the right answer by highlighting the area that's correct. And I always pick a bigger area than it is, just because the computer may or may not sense the location that closely. And so everyone who picked around the science building, you guys are correct. And then you would have got the point for that. Then I go, okay, where's the tutorial center? I ask these types of questions just so that students know where to go and they don't have to ask themselves. It takes less than 5 minutes to get this all set up, get it up and running. It's a fun way for that first class period. They like using iClicker to emphasize, syllabus type information too. So like this one would be a numeric question. So if you miss blank or more lab sessions, you will be dropped from the class. I want to see if students got that from when we talked about the syllabus, when they read it sometime before they take the syllabus quiz, which I give at the end of the first week of class. So yeah, you haven't seen my syllabus 0 to, it's actually 3. Actually, somebody got it. If they miss 3 or more, they will be dropped from the class. And the way that, this numeric questions, you can just stop it. And once it's stopped, then you can click on the correct answer or answers, and then that'll be marked as correct. And then you'll get a point for that. And everybody will see that, and they'll know what the correct answer is and what they submitted. And they'll also have a record, so they'll remember, hey, I know I can't miss more than 3, so I got to make sure that I'm there on time. And here's where us giving them problems. So this that you see that's kind of that PowerPoint slide cutout that I put in here. That's a gas law problem that I'll be asking class. Send it to them, they'd work on it, and then we'd work it out as a class after they spent time working on it. So I have the solution ready for them. And the way you can send this to students is you just hit play, but don't give students a chance to respond, and just stop it right away. And now it's in your slide deck in iClicker. So you have a record of the problem and the solution that's worked out. You also have the answer because you'll probably have been graded right before we worked out the solutions for this. And that's another way that iClicker can be used to get information to students, important information from us to them live, and they know where to go for that. This is the way I like using iClicker because how many of you, I'm just gonna do a short answer one. You can just say yes or no. How many of you have ever have trouble getting discussions going in class? I would answer yes for myself too. This sometimes, all the time, yes. And I know there's a lot of factors, right? What class is it? What time of day is it? What the makeup of the courses are, how big your classes are, and all of that. But here's how iClicker can help with this. And this is the cool thing that we can do with iClicker is, and I could have kept this going actually. When you hit play, and thank you, Natalie, for this question. We were talking a couple weeks ago, and she said she used this. I just needed a question to start a discussion. Are hot dog sandwiches? Submit your comments in iClicker. Yeah, so why is it though? Don't just say yes or no. Um, why do you think it is? And you can change your answer and resubmit until I hit the stop button. And so that's the beauty of this, where you can constantly be hand food, not sandwich. But aren't sandwiches and food? Unless is this an AI hot dog? I actually just grabbed it from the internet. It does look interesting though. It's meat between bread. So you see how we can keep going with this. Yes, bread and stuff. And as long as you need to, you can keep this discussion going. It's a hoagie. Of course. And sometimes you're looking for a particular answer. This one there's no answer. I don't know what the answer is, but we know like if you're asking a chemistry question, you're looking for a particular answer, you can hone in on that by kind of reading through the discussions. Now this probably works best in a small mid-size. I can imagine if you had 300 students and how quick the responses are going to come through, it might be hard to read. But it might work too. I've never tried it with that large. I've tried it up to 75 and it works fine. But that's one way that everyone can participate in the discussion without I guess feeling ashamed to participate. And what you can do is you can give everybody credit. And you can always go back after class and click on all the responses and give everybody credit for something like this, so that yes, you got participation points for being part of this class discussion. And you can moderate it, and you can see that it does work in that way. Another tool for developing community. This is something that I talked with Natalie about earlier this semester. Um, this came out. I'm actually on sabbatical right now, so I don't have a chance to use this in class until next semester. But she told me about this groups feature, and I think it's really cool. Right now it's in beta mode, but what it can allow you to do is split your class up into small groups. They physically have to get up and find their group members, and it allows students, a kind of a fun way to get up, physically move, and work with different people. And this could be used. I imagine using it in the beginning of the semester, just kind of as an icebreaker, and maybe midway as kind of another icebreaker to kind of break the monotony of the class up. Um, and the group feature itself, there's a way that you can answer the questions, and it encourages consensus among the group in order to get credit. So a lot of discussion hopefully will happen, and I'm looking forward to trying this out next semester. And if you have questions about this, ask Natalie. She can show you the nuts and bolts of how this works. No, iClicker for assessment. We did say, right, iClicker and quizzing and is a big deal. And that is the beauty of this. And it's not just that it can, it's because it you we how many of us use PowerPoint slides in class? Do you use PowerPoint slides for your lectures, or Google Slides, or something of that sort? Sometimes, and then yes, okay. Um, if it's sometimes, then you can ask questions other ways, the days that you aren't using any kind of slide deck. But if you are using a slide deck, asking iClicker questions, really just making another slide and typing your question in. It doesn't take much time other than coming up with the question. So using it for assessment, either high stakes or low stakes, formative or summative, whichever uh, you need it for, uh, the tool's there for you. And the cool thing about iClicker, it is a nice balance between competition and cooperation. There are some other student engagement tools that really weigh in the competition side of it, where unless you're the fastest one, you're not going to get as many points, if any points at all, versus giving the students a chance to work together as part of the question session. And this iClicker also balances students who want to answer things individually, and students who do want to kind of talk with folks and kind of come up with an answer together and share ideas. Um, and the way that works in my class, I use iClicker as a low stakes formative assessment tool. I make sure it's not punitive. So students who don't do iClicker, it's not like it's going to tank their grade at all. It can only help them. I grade very loosely in iClicker, so all the points that they can earn in a semester, I just find the student who has the maximum number of points, and if you got 50% of that, you got full credit for iClicker. So it's on a really loose curve. It's to encourage the participation. Um, I don't use it, I guess I use it for formative assessment because since I flipped my class is run by questions. And iClicker will help me to know what students are getting, what they're struggling with. And then sometimes while they're answering one question, if I don't have a question in my deck that kind of um, touches on the topic that they're struggling with, I'm writing a question while they're working on one. And so that's how my class goes, and iClicker drives the direction of the class. I have an overall plan, and iClicker kind of fills in the path for that. And if students forget their device or have a dead battery or even miss a day because they can't be in class for whatever reason, it's okay. It's not that big a deal if it's a day. They forgot their device, they can work with someone. Dead battery, they can work with someone. And it's easy to go back into iClicker at the end of the class period and copy those scores over between the students that work together. But the way I run my class is using a lot of low stakes assessment via iClicker. And iClicker works great with the think, pair, share approach. This allows students to individually come up with an answer. and then work together, and then change answers if need be, because the poll doesn't close until you stop it. So what I do is I send a question out to students, and then I have them respond, and I look at the iClicker responses, and like in this case, it's okay, half the class got it. iClicker doesn't tell you which students, the ones that are where they're sitting, got it. It just tells you how many. I'm just kind of using this as a model for what a typical class might look like. And so then at this point, I go, well, I'm normally looking for two-thirds to three-quarters of the students at least who get the correct answer before stopping the poll and explaining and moving on. So then I tell the students, all right, I may give them a hint, or I may just say, you know what, work with the students around you. Discuss the question, share your answers, share why you picked the answers you did, and then change your answers if you need to. And then students will do that for another couple minutes. Maybe they change their answers, and look, oh, now 90% of the class gets it, got it correct. Okay, so I'll stop the poll, I'll make my explanations, and then we move on to the next question. And I may ask a follow-up question to see how much they got, if the discussions help them to understand the topic. To keep things kind of fresh with students, I do like to use different types of questions. So yeah, you could see today we used questions, multiple choice questions. We didn't use multiple answers. Those are the ones you can select more than one and then multiple choices. Um, I do like to just keep it going and try to ask questions in as many different ways as I can, just to keep students on their toes, so they're not just waiting for another multiple choice question. Pixie, 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 right? So like I've just got a couple examples of these. The next few slides are the same question. I'll ask this in 30 seconds or something like that. So like this one's a multiple choice. Which element creates a monatomic ion having a -2 charge? Okay. This would be like what I would ask in my intro chem class. And I wouldn't show the results. So as students are answering, they don't get to see what other students are answering. I only make sure that I look at it when either the screen's not sharing to them, or it's on a second screen, or through the app. And so then I'd stop it. Oops, see, I sent it as a short answer. And sometimes the students go, hey, wait a minute, it's not multiple choice. So this is, and I go, oh, oops, sorry about that. But the answer is D. So then I say D, oxygen, oxygen, to any of them. And then I'd say, well, you know what? Let's talk about that. And then we can kind of move on. Right? The same question though can be asked as a target question. So if I'm trying to get students to get familiar with the periodic table, it's like, okay, which elements create monatomic ions having a -2 charge? And so I want them to tap on the periodic table somewhere to represent that. And then I see, oops, I see also my the chat got sucked in there, so you can't see it. But I'll stop it, and then I'll grade this one too. Sometimes it takes a second to grade. I'll select. Nobody answered outside of the column, which is great. So I say, okay, you guys get this, and then we'll move on. And then you can ask this. You saw in a short answer kind of in a way that wasn't a neat way, because it was supposed to be multiple choice. But then if I asked it in a short answer form, I'm looking for a particular set of answers. So what are the atomic symbols? So the abbreviations for elements that can be, just give me one, that will form a -2 charged monatomic anion. So now we're looking for specific answers. Capitalization matters, right? So then it narrows down the choices to the four that are on the periodic table. So as answers roll in, like oxygen is the easiest one to type. I'm going to stop it because we not assessing you guys, but then okay, you guys got this, and then we can move on. Like, okay, good. You know what the -2 charge ions are. Sometimes we do electrochemistry. There's a lot of questions we can ask about this. What's the cell potential of this cell, right? like this one, this was a target question, which electrode is going to gain mass over the once you close the circuit. You can say which one's going to lose mass, and which solution is going to gain concentration, which one's going to the concentration going to go down. And again, this can be done by a target question, short answer, a numeric one if you're asking for the cell potential. And you can see just the ways that the same question can be twisted around and kind of keep students thinking about different things. What's the anode? Which is the cathode? Things of that nature. These ones are fun, right? I think whenever we get to students and talking about titration curves, there's a lot of, like, they may see the curve and go, oh yeah, I know where the equivalence point is. That might be an easy question for them to answer. But then, asking what species are present at different points, this can also be done in a lot of different ways. And so one of the ways like this would be, it'd be like a multiple, actually, I think I would do this as a short answer one, actually, where if there's a multiple letters that you want to do, just type those letters next to each other. What species are present at the equivalence point when acetic acid is titrated by potassium hydroxide? I want to take questions at the end, so I'm not going to keep this one going for too much longer. You can see how that's used. But iClicker, I'm hoping that you saw that it was easy to set up, even when things get bumpy, right? Plus, we're in front of people, but it's easy to get around that. You saw how quick Natalie was to be able to send the right link to you all. When you set up your own class, it's even easier because you're firing it up and students are already registering for that particular iClicker course. Hopefully you can see that how iClicker can build up a sense of community in the class and help develop an equitable learning environment, giving every student what they need, because now you know what they need, because iClicker is that conduit. And how students will be engaged through this tool that's easy to get access to, and that you can use it in a ton of ways. And I'm going to close by saying, when I substitute for other instructors, for 1 or 2 days or whatever it might be, and they don't have iClicker, I feel like I'm walking into the class with, it's almost like my hands are tied, I have earmuffs on, and I'm just kind of going through the motions sometimes, just because I can't know what students, I don't have an easy way of knowing what they need or what they need help with, unless the class is a very vocal one, which not all classes are, especially with a substitute instructor. So I like iClicker a lot, as you can tell. Hopefully you will too. And if you have any questions about iClicker, feel free to email me. We can arrange a Zoom meeting if you want. And we can talk about how ideas of how to use it in the classroom, um, brainstorm chemistry question ideas, whatever you'd like to do. And thank you for your time. Thank you for coming today. And if you have questions, I think we'll open it up, hand it back to Maureen and Natalie.
Yes, please go ahead and put questions in. And if you feel like it's more than you want to put in chat, let me know, and I will just turn your volume on so you can speak up and ask a question live. And if there are no questions, then thank you for your participation and for playing along today. We're still here for some questions, but if you need to go, we are very grateful for you spending an hour with us.
And we do
And
have
thank
one.
you.
Looks like we've got one.
Oh, we
got
got
one.
Oh, in the Q&A.
Yeah. How do you handle students who work at different paces? The more prepared students work fast and get bored.
Excellent question.
Yeah, what I do is I kind of, based on your class, you kind of know how long, or you're going to develop a feel for how long the average student is going to take to solve a particular problem. I give them that many. A lot of times for me, it's 2 to 3 minutes to read the problem, start working on it, to submit an answer. The more prepared students, if there's a lot of that in the class, I'm finding that more students are submitting sooner. Then I kind of go with the shorter time, and then we kind of move on faster. Then that it just depends how many of the students are more prepared and working fast. Because I find that with iClicker, students aren't bored, they may have to wait 1 or 2 minutes, but they don't mind because then they have a breather because that's what it looks like. And then the next question will come, and the next question will come after that, and then they can think about things. A lot of times, when I do let students help each other. So unless I really want their individual response first, I tell them. But then I always say, you know what? If you don't know, go talk to the person next to you. And a lot of times, that student who already has it answered can start helping someone else, and they're still engaged with the material.
Well, and I would add to that Kahoot is a lot like playing horse, where you're competing against everybody. But iClicker is like golf, where you're competing against yourself. You're trying to improve your own scores. So those very high-level students, they find iClicker very engaging because they want a perfect score. So that's what they're chasing. Whereas when you have a student who maybe is in that DC range, iClicker is really great for them because it forces them to try and answer these questions that they might otherwise just kind of hang back and not actually engage with if it was asked orally. All right, do we have any other questions? We've got about 2 minutes left. This was really fun. Thank you, Brandon. How long have you been using iClicker? And Deb Sharma has his hand up. I hope he can throw his question into our Q&A because I can't turn his microphone on.
I just tried.
Yeah, how many years? How many years have you been using iClicker, Brandon?
We started in spring 2016. So it's been several years now. They all kind of know, like, okay, this is how we're going to use this particular tool in this class. And then as they, as the semester progresses, then they'll get more used to it, knowing what the kind of the instructor's purpose for picking that was. And so I tell them for my class, like, this is how we do our class. There's some expectations for you, things to do before class, make sure you read the material and all that stuff. And while we're in class, we're going to be using iClicker the entire class period. So then they're like, okay. So then they try to get in as soon as they can. And the ones they can't, then I try to help them, after class or something during office hours. But I could share what I have with you too, or we could talk, or you could talk with Natalie if you'd like to strategize maybe what might work best with your particular course.
This was a great webinar, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and end. There'll be a recording that goes out later, and I'm sure we'll have other goodies that go along with it, like the slides that Brandon showed us all. So thank you so much, Brandon. This was so great, and I hope you all have a great week.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.